I want you to take a second and just imagine your ultimate life goal.
Just picture it right now in your mind.
Yeah. Is it finally hitting that specific number in your retirement account? Or maybe achieving a certain level of power or influence in your career?
Could be fame. Or just reaching a status where everyone in your industry respects you.
Right. We are essentially conditioned from day one to chase these exact things.
Constantly.
But what if pursuing those very goals is the exact reason you might feel unfulfilled?
It's a heavy question.
It really is. Today, we are looking at a radical perspective that takes all of those conventional goals, the money, the power, the status, and turns them completely upside down.
It's a massive shift in perspective. I mean, we spend our entire lives measuring our progress by external metrics, usually financial or social ones.
Oh, absolutely.
But the material we're looking at today argues that those metrics are actively blinding us to the only measurement that actually matters for human happiness.
And so the mission of our deep dive today is to fundamentally redefine what it means to have a beautiful life. We are going to examine a single, incredibly powerful metric. And it's not the wealth you've accumulated.
Not at all.
It's the absolute trust in your relationships.
Which is such a different way to measure success.
It really is.
That-
We are grounding this conversation in an essay written by Shifeng from March 2024.
Titled, A Beautiful Life is Made Up of People You Trust.
Yes. And reading through this source material completely rewired how I look at my own social circle. Okay, let's unpack this. Because Shifeng doesn't just suggest that trust is a nice bonus to have in life.
Right.
He makes it the absolute center of human existence.
And what's fascinating here is that to really understand his argument, we first have to define what he means when he uses the word secular.
That's a great point.
Because throughout the essay, he refers to secular society or secular family. And he's not necessarily talking about religion versus atheism here.
No, it's broader than that.
Exactly. He's referring to mainstream, materialistic, modern society, the everyday world where we trade time for money, where we measure success by status, and where we build relationships based on convenience or mutual benefit.
That distinction is so helpful because it sets up the contrast for his definition of trust.
Yeah.
Because we throw that word around a lot in this secular society. You know, we say we trust a coworker to finish a spreadsheet.
Or we trust a friend to show up to a movie on time.
Right. But the essay strips away that casual usage.
Yeah.
And it replaces it with a standard so high, it frankly feels impossible.
It's a deliberately extreme standard.
Mm.
Swofeng isn't talking about everyday reliability. He outlines a concept he calls complete trust.
Complete trust.
And to achieve complete trust, he lays out 4 very specific pillars.
And these aren't suggestions, right?
No, they are absolute requirements in his framework.
Okay, let's actually walk through these 4 pillars one by one. And
Yep.
if you are listening right now, try doing what we did when we read this. Mentally put the people in your life through this exact filter.
It's a tough exercise.
It really is. So the first requirement for complete trust is this. You are willing to let this person arrange your entire life.
Just hand over the steering wheel.
Yeah. My immediate reaction to that was, honestly, no way.
Oh yeah, it sounds foolish at first.
Totally.
What's fascinating here is how violently that first pillar clashes with our modern values. In our standard framework, autonomy is the ultimate goal. We want to be the masters of our own destiny.
Nice.
But Zhou is arguing that holding onto that control means you're keeping a defensive barrier between you and the other person. You're essentially saying, I trust you, but I still need to protect myself from you. Complete trust, in his view, means dropping that barrier entirely. You are allowing someone else to dictate your path.
Which requires an insane amount of vulnerability.
Huge.
And the second pillar pushes that even further. It states that you are willing to bear any responsibility or obligation for them.
Think about the practical implications of that.
Mm-hmm.
Bearing any responsibility means tying your fate to theirs without a safety net.
If they fail, you fail.
Exactly. If they incur a massive debt, it's your debt. You are stepping entirely outside the boundaries of self-preservation. Most of us wouldn't even do that for our extended family members.
I certainly wouldn't. And then we hit the third pillar, which is where it gets incredibly tangible.
The money.
Yes. You are willing to hand over all your wealth to them without a single doubt. Every single penny.
It's intense.
I was joking earlier that I wouldn't even trust my best friend with my streaming service passwords, let alone my entire life savings. How does the author even justify that level of financial surrender?
He justifies it by removing money from its pedestal entirely. In the secular world, wealth is our primary means of survival. It's our shield against the unknown.
Right.
So handing it over feels like stripping naked in a blizzard.
That's a good way to put it.
But Schreffing's logic is that if you truly, completely trust someone, you know they would never let you freeze. If you have even a sliver of doubt that they might run off with your money, then by definition, you do not completely trust them.
Wow.
The wealth is just a proxy for the depth of the bond.
That makes sense, even if it's really hard to swallow. And finally, the fourth pillar is that you are willing to tell them your deepest inner secrets, completely unafraid that they will ever hurt you.
Bro leverage.
Exactly. So putting it all together, letting them arrange your life, taking on all their obligations, handing over all your money, and exposing your darkest secrets.
Yeah.
When I counted how many people in my life fit that exact description, the number was 0.
You aren't alone in that.
Yeah.
And the author acknowledges this harsh reality. The essay notes that in normal secular society, if a person goes through their entire life and manages to find just 3 to 5 people they can trust at this absolute level, it is considered an incredible, almost unbelievable achievement.
A jackpot, essentially.
Exactly, a jackpot.
If hitting 3 to 5 is a jackpot, it really forces you to reevaluate what a successful life looks like.
Yeah.
Which brings us to a massive reality check in the text.
Yeah, the dichotomy.
Right. Xu Feng presents this incredibly stark dichotomy. He argues that if you have 100 completely trusted people in your life, you have achieved the most beautiful life possible.
100.
And it holds true regardless of whether you have money, power, status, or fame. You could have nothing to your name, but with 100 trusted people, you are at the pinnacle of human existence.
And he frames the inverse just as absolutely. If you have 0 completely trusted people, if no one meets those 4 pillars we just broke down, then your life is the most miserable life possible.
Even if you're a billionaire.
It doesn't matter if you're a billionaire. It doesn't matter how many followers you have or how much corporate power you wield. Without that foundation of absolute trust, secular success is essentially an illusion.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Xu Feng doesn't just say that money and power are separate from trust. He issues a stark warning.
Yes, he does.
He says that relying on money, power, fame, lust, or status will absolutely never help you find trustworthy people. In fact, pursuing those things actively destroys the trust around you.
Let's break down the mechanics of why that happens according to the text. When your relationships are built on wealth or status, they become inherently transactional.
Right.
You surround yourself with people who are drawn to the resources you provide, not to who you are as a human being. This creates an environment of perpetual suspicion.
Because you never know their real motives.
Exactly. You can never truly know if the people around you are loyal to you or just loyal to the benefits they get from you.
Right. And he proposes a brilliant, brutal way to test this. I call it the bank card test.
This part is wild.
It is. The author challenges you to look closely at your secular family, your friends, your business partners, the people you casually claim to trust. And he asks, would you hand them your bank card, give them your PN, and let them manage your money?
Just hand it over.
Would you go to a lawyer today and put all your property in their name?
It's a highly disruptive question because it yanks the reader out of abstract philosophy and forces them into a very uncomfortable, practical reality.
Very uncomfortable.
We love to tell ourselves that we have deep, trusting friendships. But the moment legal title to a house or access to a retirement account is on the line, our true level of trust is exposed.
I tried to imagine doing this with some close friends, and the hesitation was immediate. I thought, what if they make a bad investment? What if they get sued and my house is in their name?
And that hesitation provides the ultimate so what of this whole exercise.
Yeah.
According to Xu Feng, if you hesitate for even a fraction of a second, it proves without a shadow of a doubt that you do not completely trust them.
That is brutal.
He uses this practical financial test to completely shatter our illusions about the strength of our secular relationships.
It's a tough pill to swallow,
Yeah.
recognizing that your safety net might be mostly illusion. And the psychological impact of this realization is immense in the text.
It dictates everything.
Right. The text details the contrasting emotional states that come from either having this complete trust or lacking it. It paints a picture of 2 entirely different emotional landscapes. High trust is basically heaven on earth, and low trust is hell.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the author describes the state of high trust in very expansive terms. When you are surrounded by completely trusted people, your perception of the physical world literally changes.
Your world feels bigger.
Yes. The text notes that you experience profound inner peace, happiness, optimism, and confidence. He even says romance is heightened. Life simply feels beautiful because you are fundamentally secure.
But without that trust, the emotional landscape is incredibly bleak. If you have zero completely trusted people, the text says you constantly feel anxious. You feel surrounded by crises.
Always on edge.
Always. You feel helpless and pessimistic about the future. Life stops being an adventure and becomes what Xu calls a bitter journey.
This raises an important question about how we construct our reality. The essay is arguing that trust dictates our perception of everything. Your day-to-day environment isn't shaped by your physical surrounding.
Right, not the house or the car.
Exactly. Not the square footage of your house, the badge in your car, the view from your office. It is shaped entirely by your psychological safety net. If that net is woven with absolute trust, you feel free. If that net is missing, even a luxury penthouse feels like a prison of anxiety and isolation.
I think anyone who has ever felt lonely in a crowded room or felt stressed despite having a good salary can relate to that on some level.
For sure.
But if we go back to his benchmark for a beautiful life, he's talking about having 100 of these completely trusted people. Earlier, we established that finding 3 to 5 is a secular miracle.
A jackpot.
Right. So how is 100 even mathematically possible? Well, Xu Feng shares a massive personal revelation in the essay. He claims that he has actually found over 100 people he completely trusts.
It is a huge claim.
He states he can put his money in their pockets or his property in their names without a single worry.
It's an astonishing claim. He's presenting a lived reality that directly contradicts the limitations of the secular world he just critiqued.
Yeah.
And he addresses this impossibility head-on. The text claims you simply cannot find this many trustworthy people in standard secular society.
So where in the world is he finding them?
Right.
According to the text, you can only find them on what the author describes as the path to heaven. Now, to be clear, we are impartially reporting the author's stated framework here. We aren't endorsing it. But he claims that on this specific path, you can find not just 100, but 1,000 or even 10,000 completely trustworthy people.
It's crucial to understand how he's using the concept of the path to heaven here. He's framing it as a specific alternative way of living, entirely divorced from secular values.
Okay.
Whether you view that spiritually, philosophically, or metaphorically, the sheer scale of trust he's describing forces a massive paradigm shift in human psychology. It leads to the climax of the essay, the transformation of the self.
Right, because when you reach that benchmark, when you are held by over 100 people you absolutely trust, something fundamental breaks down. The author notes that the concept of the self actually stops being important.
It vanishes.
But how does having 100 great friends lead to the death of your ego?
Think about what the ego, or the self, often is in a secular context. It's a defense mechanism.
Okay.
We build up our identity, our wealth, and our boundaries to protect ourselves from a world we don't fully trust. We are the center of our own universe because we have to be. No one else is going to catch us if we fall.
That is so true.
But Swifeng's logic is that if you have 100 people who have sworn to arrange your life, bear your responsibilities, and hold your secrets, that defense mechanism becomes obsolete. You don't need to protect yourself anymore. The rigid boundaries of the self just dissolve.
That makes so much sense. And when the self stops being the center of the universe, your entirely new purpose emerges.
Exactly.
The author explains how his own motivations completely shifted. Working hard, grinding, creating wealth, it's no longer about accumulating a hoard of treasure for his own survival. Creating wealth for those trusted people becomes his greatest happiness and his proudest glory.
It flips completely.
The text describes this feeling that dedicating everything, even his own life, to these trusted people feels profoundly great.
This is a radical departure from conventional individualism.
Mm-hmm.
In the secular framework, personal accumulation is the ultimate goal. But in Schweffen's high-trust framework, self-interest is viewed through a completely different lens. The text highlights a very specific view on selfishness.
Yeah.
He states that any lingering selfishness actually makes him feel ashamed. It's not viewed as a healthy survival instinct. It's viewed as a betrayal.
A betrayal of what? Because my instinct is to think, well, a little selfishness is just human nature. You have to look out for number one.
According to the essay, this selfishness is viewed as a betrayal of the great creator, and more broadly, an abuse of life itself. Let's walk through his logic here.
Right.
In his framework, if you are blessed enough to be held in a web of absolute unconditional trust by hundreds of people, To act selfishly is to violate the very fabric of that beautiful life. You are bringing the transactional, anxious poison of the secular world into a pure environment. It's a regression. To hoard for yourself when 100 people are willing to give you everything is seen as a profound spiritual failure.
It's basically saying, you've been rescued from the bitter journey. Why are you still acting like you're starving?
Exactly. It's a failure to recognize the abundance of the trust you've been given.
So Shuo Feng distills everything down to one final ultimate secret at the end of the essay.
The big takeaway.
Yeah. He concludes that gaining more completely trusted people means we are actively walking toward heaven. But losing them, or having fewer people we can rely on, means we are actively walking toward hell. It becomes a continuous living metric of exactly where we stand in life.
It completely reframes the human journey. You're no longer measuring your life's progress by your career trajectory or your financial portfolio.
No.
Your progress is measured exclusively by your capacity to build and sustain absolute trust. It challenges us to look closely at our own networks and honestly evaluate the foundation of our connections.
Let's bring this all together. Today, we unpacked a deeply challenging essay that strips away our comfortable illusions about success.
It really does.
We learned that according to Shuo Feng, true wealth has absolutely nothing to do with money. It is exclusively measured by the depth of absolute trust we share with others. We discussed the 4 intense pillars of this trust, the brutal reality of the bank card test, and how secular pursuits actively destroy our ability to build these vital connections.
And we explore the profound transformation that occurs when this level of trust is achieved at scale. This framework forces us to audit our lives.
Yeah.
It asks us whether our relationships are genuinely built on the kind of trust that allows us to surrender control, or if they are merely built on convenient alignment. It's an uncomfortable process, but a necessary one if we want to understand what a truly beautiful life looks like according to the source material.
It's definitely an uncomfortable audit, but it's also incredibly inspiring to think that a life defined by that level of expansive trust is even conceptually possible.
Absolutely.
So what does this all mean for you right now? We've covered a lot of ground today on this deep dive, but I want to leave you with a final lingering thought to mull over.
Something to really think about.
We talked about how the text argues that achieving a beautiful life with 100 trusted people makes yourself unimportant. But that raises a fascinating question.
Okay.
If true trust requires completely letting go of your self-interest to serve others, does a beautiful life actually require the complete death of the self you spent your whole life trying to build? We want to thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the information around you, keep examining the foundations of your own life, and we'll see you next time.